To make this pastry, first of all we start off with some melted butter. You put it in a glass and pour it into a bowl. The next step is to actually put the same amount of oil as butter. So you use the same glass, and you fill it up to where you see that the mark has been left by the butter. Then you add that. Make sure you pour it out the same side as you pour out the butter, so that the mark remains. Then you get water, cold water, and you put it into the glass up to the mark that's left by the butter. And then you add it to your butter and oil. To this, you add a teaspoon of salt, and then you start to add your flour. You always use plain flour. Now you add it a little bit at a time, and you mix it till that flour is incorporated, and so that there are no lumps. Sometimes you have to beat it a little bit to get rid of the lump, and press it against the side of the bowl. As you see that the lumps are disappearing, you can add a little bit more flour. And basically you do this until you see that the mixture is forming into a ball. There aren't any real measures for this recipe, basically because the measure is the initial amount of butter that you melt. So technically you can't actually make a mistake with the ingredients. Just keep adding and stirring till it's all incorporated. This particular shortcrust pastry is ideal for vegetable fillings. It's not really used for meat fillings because of the amount of fat, so the finished product, if you did use meat, would be quite greasy. You see how it's thickening up now, so you have to be very careful when it gets to this stage not to put any more flour unless you see that you actually need it. A good guide for the consistency of the dough mixture, of the pastry mixture, sorry, is to feel the bottom of your ear, your earlobe, which is quite soft. And then if you feel the pastry mixture, then that will give you an idea of when it's ready. But as you see, it's all congealed into a big lump, manageable. Just try it. It's not sticking to your fingers at all, so it's pretty much ready, even though you will feel that it is quite moist. You can see on my fingers that there's still a lot of grease there. But then if you flour your surface and turn it on, and then you just fold a little bit of flour at a time into your dough mixture. Once you feel that your fingers are less greasy, then I would say that that would be ready to use. If you start to put more and more flour in at this stage, you'll find that the finished product is actually quite dry. I'm going to put a little bit more. I think it is a little bit too wet still. When you see it gleaming on the surface, that means yes, you do need a little bit of extra flour. You don't punch it like you would punch bread dough, just press it in gently. turning. Bring it all together into a ball. And then it's ready to use. You can rest it for half an hour just so that it firms up, and you can actually freeze this very, very well. And all you do once you're ready, when you've got your filling, you can just break off a lump, press it out, if you flour the surface, press it out with your fingers into a circle. You don't use a rolling pin. If you did use a rolling pin, it would just stick. But by this way, you're literally just patting it out gently, not giving it, and it doesn't stick to your fingers at all. But as I was saying, with a rolling pin, you'll be tempted to use more flour, which will basically ruin the finished product. So there you've got your first circle. So then you would just fill it and fold it up, which I'll show you when I have the filling. The dough has been in the fridge and it's quite firm. So you take your piece of dough, roll it into a ball, and then you press it out into a circle. Only needs to be quite small. You don't want it the size of Cornish pasty, anything like that. And it does need to be quite thin. You get your filling. You place it into the centre. Keep it well away from the edges, because if it does get mixed up in the edges, it will separate as it bakes. Then if you fold it up over the top and just pinch it together all the way along. You don't need to seal the edges with water or egg white, because there is a lot of grease that makes it nice and pliable. Just check a couple of times to make sure that it's sealed all over. Press it into the shape that you're happy with, and there you go. I'll just do one more. Roll, press, and then press it out onto your surface, work surface. Always press with the fingertips, not with the palm of your hand, because the palm of your hand is a lot warmer and that's not good for any pastry. Add your filling. Bring up the edges to meet in the centre and then pinch together. Okay, so I'll stop recording now. I'll fill up the baking tray, and when it's ready to go in the oven, I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've made a few borek, which I've put in my tray. As you can see, that the baking tray is completely unlined and ungreased. You really don't need anything with this pastry, it's fantastic. So they're ready for the oven basically. You can see from here how much dough I've got left. So it does make a lot of borek, and what I'll do is I can stick it in the freezer. What I'll do is I'll divide it into two and put it in the freezer and just make a few at a time. So you need to brush with the whole egg to give it a nice shiny finish. I was thinking that I'd need to separate the egg, but I don't. Whisk it up together. And then just pat a little bit over the pastries. You can make it without, but this just gives a little bit of sheen to the finished item. It makes it a little bit more attractive to eat. There you go. And then we're ready for the oven. We'll put it in a preheated oven, gas mark 200. Preheat it for at least 10 minutes so it's nice and hot, and then you bake your borek for 20 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes later, and here's the end result. I break one in half. You see they don't stick. I break one in half to show you. I can't touch it obviously because it's so hot. There you go. That's what they're like inside. So I really hope you have a go at making these. It really does make pastry very, very easy. Let me know.